Welcome back, my duelist friends. Casual Duelist here. It's another Sunday, which means some more speed duel stuff. But again, thank you everybody for understanding this week. A lot of things going on, a lot of things in play. So just thank you. As far as what we're going to do today, you may have seen from the thumbnail real quick. Obviously, we're going to be using a Pegasus build. We're going to be doing something with the Toon Ancient Gear Golem. And so this is really like a 2-turn setup OTK-ish type thing, but it's not an OTK in the sense like it's not a first turn killer. This one does have just a might bit of setup and actually does prefer going first or second. Doesn't really matter. So with all that out of the way, let's get you guys a deck. What's our skill today? Our skill is going to be it's a Toon World. Couple reasons. Number one, I didn't want to run Toon World into main build and pay 1,000 life points to activate. And two, this one is going to start in play at the beginning of the duel, and it's not going to cost us a card from our hand. I want to say that was Call of the Haunted from Bones that maybe did that. Actually lowered your starting hand size even further than a normal speed duel limit. So again, just really cool and different, I guess. But again, if you guys got some of the first wave of structure decks, then you should have these. Moving on to the deck itself. We're going to play a lot of non-Toon monsters. Like, we're going to start off with 3 copies Break of the Magical Warrior. Again, when you summon this card, when it is normal summoned, place a spell counter on this card. It can only hold up to 1. Gains 300 attack points for every spell counter it does have. Again, this is only ever going to be 1. So this will bring the attack base up to 1900. You can then remove that spell counter from this card to target a spell or trap card on the field and destroy the target. Now, again, we are basically just going to be doing this to the opponent. We don't want to do this to our own stuff today. Even though you realistically could, you don't want to because it's not going to feed into our win loop. And then next up, the only other really playable monster in the build is going to be 3 copies of Gale Lizard. Because Gale Lizard's actually going to do this whole great. You can set this and then just pass your turn. What it does is when this flips, target a monster that the opponent controls and bounce that or return that card from the field to the owner's hand. Now, in the case of something from the extra deck, like Flame Wingman or any other fusion monster right now, this translates not to go into the hand, but back into the extra deck. It will have to be replayed properly. Otherwise, nothing happening. And then, of course, we're going to be playing our 2 copies of our Toon Ancient Gear Golem. And that's important that it's a Toon. Because again, regular Ancient Gear Golem cannot be special summoned. Toon Gear Golem can. Let's get a close-up on this one. So cannot attack the turn it is summoned, which is going to be fine. I'm going to show you guys why. While you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, you can attack your opponent directly, which means we're going to go for game with this guy. And if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to the opponent. So again, if we run something over, all the better. And then the last effect, this is really killer for the opponent too. If this card attacks, your opponent cannot activate any spell trap card until the end of the damage step. So just like a regular Ancient Gear card, when this guy attacks, you can't activate that Widespread Ruin or Negate Attack or any of it. Just can't happen, guys. So again, this is going to lead into our power base. And by the end of the main deck, you guys are going to understand exactly why there are only 2 of these. I promise, it's so streamlined. Other things we're going to run in this deck, we're going to run 3 copies of the spell card Book of Moon. Again, quick play, set it. Takes on the activation of a trap. Anytime during our own turn, we can activate it from our hand. The big payoff here is target a face-up monster on the field, generally the opponent's. Change that target to face-down defense. Now, because you want to protect its Toon World, because it's going to count as Toon World, again, your opponent plays Breaker. Well, Breaker's going to go down. The response is maybe Breaker could or couldn't get its counter in time, since we're not playing with Scapegoat Priority, whatever. But this will prevent Breaker from hitting your Toon World. It'll also stop other things from going off and starting combinations. So again, just use it. The more disruption we have leading into our actual strategy, the better. A couple of times in playtesting, I had like a set Gale Lizard. And then, sorry about that. And then I did end up summoning Breaker the next turn after a Book of Moon. I was able to flip. This thing does sport 1,400 attack points. So I was able to, bounce and then go in for 3,300, which is just fantastic. And sometimes that's really all you need to really offset the opponent. So it's a thing. Since we are afraid of our opponent's back row for our own setup, and again, things like Dust Tornado kind of exist in the game, we're going to be using Cosmic Cyclones. And again, these are going to be quick plays, so we can set them and wait to see what our opponent does, flip them during the opponent's end phase, whatever we want, and go ahead and get off the effects. The effect, pay 1,000 life points, target a spell trap on the field, and banish that card. So again, not exactly a destruction effect like some cards require in order to get off some of their effects, but still very good. Next up, we're going to be using 3 copies of Gear Town, and a special thumbs up to all of you who just figured out what the last 3 cards of the deck are after this, because I know a couple of you either jumped ahead in the video or you guys got ahead of me as far as reasoning this one out. So congrats. Gear Town, this is cool because we could play it. We could use Breaker to break it ourselves. What this does, both players could normal summon Ancient Gear monsters for 1 less tribute. Vis-a-vis Toon Ancient Gear Golem would be for 1 tribute, even though it's an 8-star. When this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster, which Toon Ancient Gear is. It's both a Toon and an Ancient Gear. It lives in 2 households. It has double archetype. It's awesome. But what you do is you can special summon it from your hand, the deck, or the graveyard. And the importance here is the fact that it says hand. Because of that, too, I don't want to draw into them as much as possible so that I get into the rest of the deck. But I did want to be consistent enough to pop both of them on the field. And for those of you chomping at the bit to say it, yeah, that's right. We're going to use Magical Hats at 3 to round this out to 20. And this is how we're going to play our Toon Ancient Gear Golem OTK. So what ends up happening with Magical Hats, during the opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell traps from your deck and 1 monster in your main monster zone. Special summon them as normal monsters, 0/0, face down in defense. Set the chosen monster if it is face up. Shuffle the 3 cards. Then the 2 cards that were chosen from the deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during the battle phase. So real quick, what does all of that mean? It means, Ancient Egyptian God cards willing, you are going to place 2 Gear Towns down as your monsters. And again, since Gale Lizard could be set and doesn't have to go face down, Gale Lizard's fine. You still can spring that on the opponent. The goal here is the opponent either attacks and destroys the Gear Towns, which counts as destroying the card, and then generates our Toon Gear Golems, or they end their battle phase, go through their end phase, and at the end of the battle phase, the Gear Towns pop because of the Magical Hats effect, still counting as a destroy, still allowing us to summon both golems. Either way, the goal is to do this during the opponent's turn, so that the turn it's summoned, we couldn't attack, remember? But now that we're doing it during what's essentially the wind down of the opponent's turn, you're going to have 2 3K beaters that once they start swinging, traps and spells cannot activate. So if your opponent's going to activate a Book of Moon, it has to be one of those like end of the main phase or during the main phase 1 type things, at which point you're going to try to pressure out with Breaker, Cosmic Cyclones to get those effects out of the way before the battle phase. So things like negate attack and other effects such as cannot be activated due to the Gear Golem's actual effect protecting itself. So that's really like the golden rule here. And again, I'm not sure with Breaker how this works because Flip Summon used to be a type of normal summon. So you might be able to break with Breaker. He gets attacked. Magical Hats, put him face down, flip him. You may or may not get that token back or the counter. I'm not actually certain. If anybody out there wants to let us all know down in that comment section, I'm happy to learn and I would be eternally grateful. But let's continue the rest of the deck. Let's get you guys the extra in the side, right? So just real quick, it is the generic extra deck I'm always using. 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate because it's the biggest, Cyber Blader because it's one of the best, Cyber End because it's the second biggest with a ton of punch through piercing power. Not 1, but 2 Jama Kings because, again, if you're going to pack this, what's the point of packing the Knight when the King can actually drop out all 3 of your opponent's monster zones? And then, of course, the single copy Thousand Eyes Restrict because, again, it is the ultimate pivot. Going into our side deck, we're going to have 2 copies of Lost Wind. When you activate this, target a face-up special summon monster card on the field, negate its effects, have its original attack. If a monster is special summoned from the opponent's extra deck while this card is already in your graveyard, you can then set this back to the field, banish it when it leaves the field. So these 2 technically act as like 4, which is great. 2 copies Waking the Dragon, because again, your opponent is going to want to try to get rid of these magical hats ASAP. So this is one of the few decks where when I'm running the Waking the Dragon, you get to play such a mind game with the opponent here. Because not only is Waking the Dragon just always a good option and makes decks that wouldn't normally use a fusion or an extra deck more viable to have one, but in this case, they are actively going to be going after the magical hats, and there is absolutely nothing funnier than dropping Restrict and go, well, your turn's over, really, you know? And then last up, 2 copies of the Spirit, because it's just a great card. It's a very good pivot, and it can help us win some of those come from behind victories. Again, I've been lacking this card in a lot of my builds lately, just because I've been loving like the triple Book of Moon and the Lost Winds, but Zelma still has a very special place in my heart. When you activate this card, you get to special summon as a monster in defense mode that's still considered to be a trap card. Zombie, Dark, level 4, 18/5 in defense mode. And then if this card special summoned by its own effect is destroyed by battle, inflict damage to the opponent equal to the attack of the monster that did destroy it. So guys, this is Toon Ancient Gear Golem, sorta OTK. I think it's brilliant. I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with it. And again, yeah, guys, I just hope that you enjoyed this. If you guys have been enjoying what's been going on with the channel as of late, maybe consider supporting us. So, like, comment, subscribe to us if you haven't already. Let your friends know about the channel. I wouldn't encourage it, but maybe make a second YouTube, profile and like us with that one too. Don't do that last one. I that would be poor sportsmanship. But seriously, my friends, if you don't come back for the Speed Duel Spotlight, I do wish you guys a great day. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go out there and do it right. I'll see you guys later. Peace.